Commander Drake stood on the observation deck of the Terran Alliance flagship Resilience, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of distant stars. 30 years of military service had prepared him for many things, but not for the message that had arrived 3 months ago. "Sir," Lieutenant Adams approached, datapad in hand. "The Vox fleet has changed course. They're heading straight for the Mars colony." Drake nodded grimly. The Vox Empire had spread across 3 galaxies, conquering everything in their path. Their technology was centuries beyond humanity's, their warriors bred for combat. When they had announced their intention to liberate Earth from its primitive leadership, the galaxy had written humanity off as already defeated. "What's the status of Operation Phoenix?" Drake asked. "The last civilian transports are leaving Earth now," Adams replied. "The volunteers are in position." Drake closed his eyes briefly. Operation Phoenix was humanity's last desperate gambit. Earth scientists had discovered that human DNA contained latent abilities, psychic potential that had lain dormant for millennia. Project Phoenix had found a way to activate these abilities, but the process was agonizing and dangerous. Only 1 in 10 survived. Those who did emerged different, powerful. Humanity's only hope. "The Vox commander is hailing us," the communications officer announced. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a towering figure with iridescent scales and multiple eyes. Supreme Commander Zal of the Vox Empire looked down at Drake with contempt. "Your resistance is futile," Zal's voice boomed. "We've conquered species far more advanced than yours. Our warriors are engineered for combat. Our fleet can reduce your cities to ash in hours. Surrender now and your people will serve as laborers. Resist and they will be eradicated." Drake stepped forward. "We've studied your conquests, Commander. You've never faced humans before." Zal's mouth parts twitched in what might have been amusement. "Your confidence is misplaced. Your species is soft, evolved on a gentle world. Our warriors were forged in the acid storms of Vox Prime, where survival itself is a battle." "You misunderstand," Drake replied. "Earth isn't gentle. It's been trying to kill us since we crawled from the oceans. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars. Every disaster has culled the weak and hardened the survivors." He leaned closer to the display. "You think you know conflict? Humans invented war. We've been fighting each other since before we had language to describe it." "Brave words," Zal said dismissively. "You have 1 planetary cycle to surrender." As the transmission ended, Adams approached. "Sir, the Phoenix fighters are ready." Drake nodded. "Humanity isn't going down without a fight, and the Vox are about to learn what happens when you corner a species that has survived everything its own planet could throw at it." On Earth, in shielded bunkers deep beneath the surface, 10,000 volunteers screamed as the Phoenix process rewrote their genetic code. Those who survived would emerge with abilities that defied explanation: telekinesis, pyrokinesis, enhanced reflexes, strength beyond human limits. The galaxy had never seen soldiers like these, born in the fires of human desperation, forged through pain that would have killed lesser beings. The Phoenix fighters were humanity's final card in a game the Vox thought they had already won, and they were about to change the rules of engagement. The Vox fleet entered the solar system with overwhelming force, 500 capital ships, each capable of destroying a small moon. Their arrival at Jupiter was met with no resistance, exactly as they had anticipated. The lack of defenses confirmed what their intelligence had suggested. Humans were technologically inferior and strategically naive. "No signs of military mobilization," reported Subcommander Vex. "Their communications indicate widespread panic." Zal nodded, his multiple eyes scanning the tactical display. "As expected, begin deployment of the first wave." The Vox had conquered 37 species using the same methodical approach. First, overwhelm orbital defenses. Then, establish ground control of key resources. Finally, systematically eliminate resistance while preserving infrastructure and potential slave labor. "Sir." Vex suddenly straightened. "We're detecting unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon. Before Zal could respond, the void between Mars and Jupiter ignited. What had appeared to be empty space revealed itself as thousands of cloaked mines, detonating in precisely calculated sequence. The explosions weren't meant to destroy the Vox fleet. Humanity lacked the firepower for that, but to create a navigational nightmare, forcing the Vox ships into predictable avoidance patterns and into the waiting guns of Earth's hidden lunar batteries. The massive particle cannons, built in secret over the past decade, opened fire simultaneously. Designed to punch through the Vox shield's specific frequency, they tore through 3 capital ships before the Vox could adjust their defenses. Impossible, Zal roared. Their technology isn't advanced enough for this. Sir, Vex's voice was tight with controlled panic. Analysis suggests they've incorporated salvage technology from the Merc trading vessel we destroyed in their territory last year. Zal's outer membrane darkened with rage. The humans had salvaged, reverse-engineered, and weaponized technology from a civilian craft in less than a year, something that should have taken decades. Launch all fighters, he commanded. Target their lunar installations. The first wave of Vox fighters swarmed toward the moon, only to be met by small, agile, craft piloted by humans. The Vox pilots, genetically engineered for combat, expected easy victories against these primitives. They were wrong. Colonel Reed, leader of Earth's first combat wing, felt the familiar fire in her veins as she engaged her thrusters. The Phoenix process had nearly killed her, but what emerged was something more than human. Her reflexes were now measured in milliseconds, her mind able to calculate trajectories instantly, her body capable of withstanding G-forces that would crush normal pilots. Phoenix Squadron, weapons free, she transmitted to the 30 fighters under her command. Remember your training. They're stronger, but we're faster. They're experienced, but we're angry. The Vox fighters, expecting standard combat protocols, were unprepared for pilots who could anticipate their movements, who flew with seemingly impossible precision. What followed wasn't battle, it was slaughter. This isn't possible, Vex whispered as he watched the tactical display. 40% of their first wave destroyed in minutes. Zal stared at the battle unfolding before him. The humans were fighting, with a ferocity and skill that defied explanation. It was as if they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives, and in a way, they had been. Because humans had been fighting since before they built their first cities. War wasn't just something they did, it was woven into the fabric of their history, their literature, their very identity. The Vox had brought war to Earth, but they were about to discover that's where war had been born. The battle above Earth's moon raged for 6 hours before the Vox retreated to regroup. Their losses were unprecedented. 78 fighters and 2 capital ships destroyed, with minimal human casualties. Supreme Commander Zal called an emergency council of his senior officers. Explain this failure, he demanded, his outer membrane pulsing with barely contained fury. Fleet strategist Mock stepped forward. The humans are demonstrating capabilities our intelligence never detected. Their pilots are exhibiting reflexes and coordination beyond normal human capacity. They're just humans, Zal hissed. Soft-skinned, fragile creatures from a backwater planet. With respect, Commander, interrupted Science Officer Lark, I've analyzed the combat data. These aren't normal humans. Their neural patterns are altered, and the energy readings from their vessels suggest technology we haven't encountered before. Zal's multiple eyes narrowed. Explain. The humans appear to have modified themselves, Lark continued. Their pilots are demonstrating abilities that aren't biological in origin, and they've integrated energy systems into their fighters that our scans can't properly classify. In the silence that followed, Sub-Commander Vex spoke carefully. We should consider the possibility that we've underestimated them. Meanwhile, on the lunar base designated Phoenix Nest, Colonel Reed and her pilots were recovering from the battle. The Phoenix process had given them incredible abilities, but at a cost. After intense exertion, their bodies required recovery time as the altered cells stabilized. How are the pilots? General Thompson asked as he entered the medical bay. Dr. Mills looked up from her tablet. Exhausted but stable. The genetic modifications are holding, but they're pushing the limits of what their bodies can sustain. Reed sat up on her examination table, eyes bright despite her exhaustion. We can handle it, General. The Vox weren't expecting a fight. Next time they'll be prepared. Thompson nodded grimly. That's what I'm afraid of. We bloodied their nose, but they still outnumber us, 10-1. Numbers aren't everything, Reed responded. We've studied every record of their previous conquests. The Vox rely on overwhelming force and the fear it generates. They've never faced an enemy that didn't break under their first assault. And psychological warfare is humanity's specialty, added Major Turner, another Phoenix pilot. His enhancement had focused on mental abilities. He could now perceive patterns in enemy movements before they fully developed, giving him an almost supernatural ability to predict attacks. We need to push our advantage, Reed insisted. They're regrouping, trying to understand what they're facing. We need to hit them before they adapt. Thompson hesitated. We've only got 300 Phoenix fighters. If we commit them all now, then we'd better make it count, Reed finished. 12 hours later, as the Vox fleet realigned for a second assault, they detected a small group of human fighters approaching. Just 30 vessels, seemingly a suicidal attack against the might of the Vox Armada. A desperate last stand, Zoll commented dismissively. Target and eliminate. But as the human fighters closed distance, something unexpected happened. The Phoenix pilots activated their secondary enhancements, abilities that went beyond improved reflexes and strength. Major Turner projected a wave of disorientation that washed over the Vox psychic network, temporarily blinding their sensors. Lieutenant Park's telekinetic abilities crushed Vox fighter engines from a distance. Sergeant Wells generated electromagnetic pulses that disabled Vox targeting systems. For 20 crucial minutes, 30 enhanced humans wreaked havoc on a fleet of thousands, creating a diversion that allowed Earth's conventional forces to move into position unseen. And behind them came humanity's true surprise. The Phoenix carriers, massive vessels housing the remaining Phoenix fighters and Earth's newly developed weaponry. The Phoenix fighters hadn't been humanity's only project. They had also been busy building something else, a fleet worthy of those who would pilot it. The Vox had never retreated from a conquest. In their 10,000 years of expansion, they had encountered resistance, even temporary setbacks, but never a force that threatened their ultimate victory. As Supreme Commander Zoll watched the human counterattack unfold, he experienced an alien sensation. Doubt. Status report, he demanded, his voice unnaturally calm. 3 more capital ships heavily damaged, Sub-Commander Vex replied. The humans are targeting our propulsion systems and shield generators with unprecedented precision. Science Officer Lark's analysis appeared on the main display. The human fighters are emitting energy signatures consistent with direct neural interfaces. The pilots appear to be controlling their ships through thought alone, eliminating response. Delay. Impossible, Zoll muttered. Their technology wasn't capable of this 6 orbital cycles ago. There's more, Lark continued. The humans we've captured, they're dying under interrogation, but not from our methods. Their cellular structure is unstable, as if they've been modified at a fundamental level. On the bridge of the Resilience, Commander Drake watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The Phoenix fighters were performing beyond their highest projections, their enhanced pilots demonstrating capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. The Vox are pulling back to Saturn's orbit, Lieutenant Adams reported. They're regrouping. And our losses? Drake asked. 17 Phoenix fighters lost, 42 conventional vessels destroyed, Adams replied. But we've damaged or destroyed 28 of their capital ships. It's unprecedented, sir. Drake nodded. They've never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice so much. The Vox conquer through fear and overwhelming force. When that fails, they don't have a contingency plan. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's from the Phoenix Nexus. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Dr. Evans, the scientist, who had pioneered the Phoenix process. Her face was drawn with exhaustion, but her eyes burned with fierce intensity. Commander, we've activated the second wave of Phoenix subjects, she reported. 237 survivors from the initial batch of 500. They're ready for deployment. Drake's expression remained neutral, but inwardly he winced at the numbers. The Phoenix process had a survival rate of less than 50%, a fact kept from the general public. Every enhanced fighter represented a sacrifice few species would be willing to make. How soon can they join the fight? He asked. 48 hours, Dr. Evans replied. But there's something else. The survivors from this batch, they're different. The genetic modifications have stabilized in ways we didn't anticipate. They're demonstrating abilities beyond what we've seen before. Different how? Drake pressed. The first Phoenix subjects had enhanced reflexes, strength, some limited extrasensory abilities. Evans explained. These new subjects are showing more pronounced abilities. Telekinesis powerful enough to move objects weighing several tons. Pyrokinesis hot enough to melt steel. And, she hesitated, some appear to be developing a form of genetic memory. They're accessing combat knowledge they shouldn't possess. Drake's eyes widened slightly. Explain. One subject, a 22-year-old farm boy with no military training, suddenly demonstrated advanced tactical knowledge. When questioned, he claimed to remember battles from ancient Earth history as if he had fought in them himself. The implications were staggering. The Phoenix process wasn't just enhancing humans, it was unlocking something buried deep in human DNA, something that might explain humanity's paradoxical nature, their capacity for both self-destruction and remarkable resilience. Get them ready, Drake ordered. The Vox will return with a new strategy. We need to be prepared to meet it. As the transmission ended, Drake turned back to the viewport, watching the distant flashes of battle. Humanity had survived its first major engagement with the most powerful empire in known space. But the real test was yet to come. The Vox Empire's history was recorded in the genetic memory of its ruling caste. Every conquest, every strategy, every adaptation was passed down through carefully controlled breeding programs. Supreme Commander Zal carried within him the accumulated knowledge of 30 generations of military leaders, which made the current situation all the more disturbing. There was no precedent for what was happening. Analysis complete. Science, Officer Lark announced. The humans have somehow accelerated their evolutionary process. The captured specimens show genetic modifications that should take thousands of years to develop naturally. Can we counter it? Zal demanded. Theoretically, Lark replied, but it would require recalibrating our weapons to target these specific genetic markers, and these markers appear to be adapting. On Earth, in the subterranean complex designated Phoenix Nexus, Dr. Evans was making a similar discovery. The second wave of Phoenix subjects wasn't just displaying enhanced abilities. They were evolving in real time, their bodies adapting to overcome limitations. It's as if the Phoenix process unlocked some kind of dormant adaptive mechanism, she explained to General Thompson. Every time they use their abilities, the genetic structure stabilizes further, becoming more efficient. Is it dangerous? Thompson asked, watching through armored glass as a young woman, a former university student named Anna, lifted a 5-ton piece of equipment with nothing but her mind. All of this is dangerous, Evans replied soberly. We're fundamentally altering human biology. But the immediate concern is control. The more powerful they become, the harder it is to predict their capabilities, or contain them if necessary, Thompson added quietly. Evans nodded grimly. There's something else. The genetic memory phenomenon is spreading. More subjects are reporting memories they couldn't possibly have, ancient battles, historical events witnessed from first-person perspectives. How is that possible? I have a theory, Evans said. Human DNA contains fragments we've always considered junk, remnants of our evolutionary past with no apparent function. What if they're not junk at all? What if they're archives, genetic, records of our species' experiences normally inaccessible but unlocked by the Phoenix process? The implications were staggering. If true, it meant every human carried within them the collective experiences of their ancestors. a living record of humanity's struggles and triumphs stretching back to the dawn of the species. In orbit around Saturn, the Vox fleet was reorganizing. Supreme Commander Zoll had abandoned conventional tactics. The humans had proven they could counter standard Vox strategy. Now, he would try something the Vox had used only twice in their long history: a psychic assault. The Vox had powerful telepaths, capable of broadcasting fear and confusion across vast distances. Against most species, this was enough to break morale and collapse resistance. Zoll ordered his most powerful telepaths to the forward ships, preparing to target Earth's major population centers. What the Vox didn't realize was that the Phoenix process had awakened something in humanity that had lain dormant for millennia. Psychic potential that had been suppressed through natural selection as humans evolved to favor physical survival skills. As the Vox telepaths initiated their assault, something unprecedented happened. Instead of crumbling under the psychic pressure, the Phoenix fighters responded with a counterattack of their own. Their newly awakened abilities, coupled with the genetic memory of countless human conflicts, created a psychic barrier that not only blocked the Vox attack but reflected it back at its source. The effect was devastating. The Vox telepaths, unprepared for resistance, much less retaliation, were overwhelmed. Several died instantly, their minds shattered by the reflected psychic energy. Others fell into catatonic states, their consciousness fractured. For the first time in the history of the Vox Empire, a psychic assault had not only failed but backfired catastrophically. And in that moment, Supreme Commander Zoll realized a terrible truth. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were learning, adapting, evolving at an accelerated rate in response to the threat facing them. The Vox had invaded Earth expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant and taught it how to fight back. The Terran Alliance flagship Resilience moved into position near Mars, its newly upgraded weapon systems humming with power. 3 weeks into the war, humanity had achieved what no other species had managed in the face of Vox aggression: survival. The Vox fleet is regrouping, Lieutenant Adams reported. They've called in reinforcements from the Proxima Centauri garrison. Commander Drake nodded. The initial Vox force had been devastating enough: 500 capital ships against Earth's hastily assembled defenses. Now they were bringing in more. It was both a compliment and a death sentence. The Vox were acknowledging humanity as a legitimate threat, one worthy of their full attention. Status of Phoenix Squadron? Drake asked. Colonel Reed reports all fighters ready for deployment, Adams replied. The second wave of Phoenix subjects has completed basic training. Sir, the reports from their training exercises are hard to believe. Drake had seen the footage: Phoenix pilots pulling maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. Ground troops demonstrating strength and speed that defied human limitations. And the psychic abilities, telekinesis, telepathy, even pyrokinesis, growing stronger with each passing day. The Vox made a critical mistake, Dr. Evans explained during the High Command briefing. Their initial attack triggered an acceleration of the Phoenix effect. The enhanced subjects are now evolving in response to specific threats. You're saying they're adapting to counter Vox capabilities? General Thompson asked incredulously. Precisely, Evans nodded. When the Vox deployed their psychic attack, our Phoenix subjects developed telepathic shielding within hours. When they used radiation-based weapons, our subjects' cells began showing increased radiation resistance. That's impossible, one of the Joint Chiefs muttered. 2 months ago, everything we're seeing would have been considered impossible, Evans countered. The Phoenix process didn't just enhance these volunteers, it unlocked something that has always been part of human DNA, an unparalleled ability to adapt under pressure. On the bridge of his flagship, Supreme Commander Zoll faced the first real crisis of his long career. The reinforcements from Proxima Centauri would arrive in 3 days, doubling the size of his fleet. Under normal circumstances, this would guarantee victory. But nothing about this conflict had proceeded according to prediction. Our intelligence was fundamentally flawed, Science Officer Lark admitted. We categorized humans as an adaptive species, but we failed to recognize the speed and extent of that adaptability. The Emperor expects victory, Zal said coldly. Failure is not an option. Perhaps, Sub-Commander Vex suggested cautiously, we should consider a strategic withdrawal to reassess. Zal's outer membrane darkened with anger. The Vox Empire does not retreat. Then we must change our approach, Lark insisted. Conventional warfare is proving ineffective. These humans, these Phoenix subjects, are countering our every move. In the training chambers of the Phoenix Nexus, Colonel Reed watched as the newest Phoenix pilots ran combat simulations. Their neural interfaces, technology reverse-engineered from salvaged Vox equipment, allowed them to control their fighters with thought alone, eliminating the microseconds of delay that normal pilots experienced. They're ready, she told Commander Drake over the secure channel. But they're also changing. Some of them are developing abilities we never anticipated. Dangerous? Drake asked. Reed hesitated. Unpredictable. The genetic memories are becoming more pronounced. They're not just remembering ancient battles. They're accessing knowledge from every human conflict, every survival scenario our species has ever faced. Is that helping them fight? It's making them into something we've never seen before, Reed replied. They're accessing combat techniques from thousands of years of human warfare, strategies from every major conflict in history. As the Vox reinforcements approached, humanity prepared for what could be its final stand. The Phoenix fighters, now numbering over 500, took positions throughout the solar system. Earth's conventional forces, though still technologically outmatched, had been rapidly upgraded with adapted Vox technology. But humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, or even the enhanced abilities of the Phoenix subjects. It was something the Vox had never truly understood about humans, their indomitable will to survive, honed through millennia of conflict, disaster, and struggle. The Vox had come seeking conquest. What they found instead was a species forged in the fires of adversity, one that grew stronger with each attempt to destroy it. Supreme Commander Zal stood before the Emperor's holographic projection, his outer membrane pale with stress. For the first time in the history of the Vox Empire, a conquest fleet was requesting withdrawal. You wish to abandon the human campaign? The Emperor's voice was dangerously soft. Request strategic reassessment, Imperial Majesty, Zal replied carefully. The humans have demonstrated capabilities beyond our intelligence estimates. They are evolving in response to our tactics. The Emperor's multiple eyes narrowed. Explain. The humans have developed a process they call Phoenix. It accelerates their natural adaptive abilities, unlocking genetic potential we did not know they possessed. Our casualties are unprecedented. Over 200 capital ships lost, thousands of warriors slain. And the reinforcements from Proxima Centauri, Zal's membrane pulsed with discomfort. Engaged 6 planetary cycles ago, 30% of the fleet lost within the first hour of battle. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any rage. The Emperor of the Vox, ruler of 3 galaxies, faced something foreign to his experience, a failed conquest. You will hold position, the Emperor finally commanded. I am dispatching the Imperial Guard. No primitive species will defy the Vox Empire. As the transmission ended, Science Officer Lark approached cautiously. Commander, there is another development. The humans are broadcasting a message, across all frequencies in perfect Vox language. The message appeared on the main display, a human face, one of their enhanced Phoenix subjects. Colonel Reed, Zal recognized from intelligence reports. Supreme Commander Zal, she began, her voice calm. Your reinforcements have failed. Your psychic attacks have failed. Your technology, superior as it is, has failed to subdue us. We are offering you a choice that your empire has never offered others. Withdraw now and live. Arrogance, Zal hissed. We have studied your history, Reed continued. 37 species conquered, their worlds stripped, their people enslaved, or exterminated. You believed yourselves invincible because you had never met a species like humanity. Her expression hardened. We were not born on a gentle world, Commander. Earth has tried to kill us 1,000 different ways. We've survived ice ages and asteroids, plagues, and our own self-destructive tendencies. Your empire evolved to conquer. We evolved to survive. The transmission ended, leaving the Vox command center in silence. She speaks with the confidence of victory, Sub-Commander Vex observed quietly. 3 days later, the Imperial Guard arrived, the elite of the Vox military. A force that had crushed rebellions across 3 galaxies, 500 ships each more powerful than anything in the regular fleet. 10,000 warriors bred for combat, armed with the most advanced weapons in the Empire. They found the human solar system changed. The Phoenix fighters had continued to evolve. What had begun as genetic enhancement had become something more, an acceleration of humanity's potential, an awakening of abilities that had lain dormant for millennia. The Phoenix subjects now demonstrated powers that defied conventional understanding, telekinetic abilities strong enough to tear Vox ships apart from a distance, telepathic communications that could not be jammed, reflexes and strategic thinking that seemed to anticipate every Vox move. And behind them stood billions of ordinary humans, engineers working tirelessly to adapt Vox technology, scientists developing new defenses, civilians volunteering for the Phoenix process despite its risks. The battle that followed would be remembered as the turning point in galactic history. The Imperial Guard, the pride of the Vox Empire, was decimated within 48 hours. Their advanced technology, reversed engineered by human scientists and enhanced by Phoenix subjects, was turned against them. Their feared warriors, bred for combat, were outmatched by humans born on a world that had been preparing them for this moment for millions of years. As the last Imperial Guard ship retreated from the solar system, a new message was broadcast to the Vox Empire. This time it came from Commander Drake standing on the bridge of the Resilience. To the Emperor of the Vox and all who serve him, he began. Humanity does not seek conflict. We have defended our world, as is our right. We now offer peace, not as supplicants but as equals. 6 months later, a Vox diplomatic vessel, the first in the Empire's history, entered Earth orbit. The Vox had never negotiated with another species. They had never needed to. But humanity had changed the equation. In the Grand Council chamber of the newly established Terran Alliance, Supreme Commander Zoll, now designated as Envoy, faced Commander Drake across a table of polished stone. Your species has achieved the impossible, Zoll acknowledged. The Emperor offers recognition of human sovereignty and a non-aggression pact. Drake nodded. A good beginning. You must understand, Zoll continued. This is unprecedented. The Vox Empire has existed for 10,000 years without a single defeat. Perhaps that was the problem, Drake replied. Great empires need great challenges to avoid stagnation. As the diplomatic proceedings continued, Colonel Reed stood at the window overlooking Earth, the blue planet that had shaped humanity into something unique in the galaxy, a species that had spent its entire existence fighting, against nature, against each other, against extinction itself, had finally found its place among the stars. The Vox had come expecting easy conquest. Instead, they found a species born in fire tempered by adversity and ready to take its place in a wider universe, and the galaxy would never be the same again.